Welcome to the Friendzy.
I am Melissa Carter.
And I'm Jenn Hobby.
The Friendzy is here to change the conversation around age,
so that you can celebrate all your years rather than lie about them.
We are ready to share an honest and humorous take on what it means
to claim your real age while rejoicing in it.
I'm Melissa, and the nickname I was given in my church youth group as a teen was Brat.
And I'm Jenn Hobby, and I'm a feminist who still has to shave my legs every day.
Can we say that we don't know what the other one's going to say? I think that's going to be a fun show thing. We don't know what the other one's going to say.
So, Brat, how did you get the nickname Brat?
Rude. So Lori Gibson, I remember her. She was a senior. I was still in junior high school, or she is sophomore. Anyway, I'm old enough to be from junior high in high school. So junior high school, for those who never went, is 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. So you spend your freshman year in high school and junior high, and then high school is only 3 years. So anyway, I was part of my church youth group, and Lori Gibson, who was in the high school, and I was in the junior high school, somehow, I guess we all got nicknames when we were recruited into the youth group. And Brat was my name. I guess because she thought I talked too much, probably. And she called me a brat.
Mean girl stuff. Early.
And I got a Christmas ornament that had Brat on it. And I kept it for years because I thought, oh, look at this is from my youth. And then one year I was like, screw this. And I threw it away. Why would I hold on to Brat?
That's terrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think you're the only feminist that shaves her legs. But do you still well, you're married, so you shave in the wintertime.
Well, here's the thing. I don't shave for my husband. I shave for myself.
Okay.
Because the stubble on my legs drives me nuts. Like if it rubs up against even my sweatpants. I mean, we're starting this show during COVID. You know, we're all living in our sweatpants and yoga pants. But even if that little stubble rubs my pants, I'm in a bad mood. I shave my legs every day for my own mood.
Well,
so I feel like that supports my feminism because it's for me.
Yeah, well, I'll be a feminist for you because I'm single and it doesn't bother me. So, I mean, I'm full native right currently, during the pandemic. So I will
like Sasquatch, like your legs are
I haven't picked up a razor and I don't know how long, but I will, I promise. Once I get vaccinated, then I promise I won't have anybody else endure that. Because I'm with you. I like clean. I mean, whatever, to each his own, but I usually am clean, but I'm like, I'm tired.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So yes, I'm full. Yes, I'm full feminist. So there you go. I'm representing the both of us right now.
I love it. And Melissa and I have been friends for a really long time. So I want to share with our audience, like how long we've been friends, when we met, and why in the world are we starting a podcast series called The Friendzy?
So we met, I met you because I was pissed at you because my girlfriend at the time was googly eyes at your photo shoot. Were you in like a man shirt? Tell me what you know what I'm talking about. What magazine was it for? And what was you had on? Was it just a shirt?
It was like a man's collared white shirt, and that was it. And I was posing in it for some article for, I want to say it was a magazine out of Atlanta called Jezebel.
That's right.
Jezebel magazine, and it was like the 25 somethings of Atlanta. I don't even remember what, but I remember the photo shoot, and I remember thinking, this is kind of risque, but I'm doing it anyway.
Well, it looked good, but I was dating somebody at the time, and I wasn't on dialysis yet. So had been diagnosed with kidney failure. So I was starting to spend a lot of time at home, and my girlfriend or at my girlfriend's house, and my girlfriend had a copy of that magazine, and she just could not stop talking about Jenn Hobby and no, look at this. And I normally probably would have, had googly eyes as well, but because she did, I automatically went defensive, and I said, "Who the hell is this Jenn Hobby?"
Yes.
So then, fortunately for me, because in my life, anything that I have a distaste for usually comes right back. It's like God saying, Melissa, you're going to have to deal with this. So then, we were cast in the same radio show. So we were able to sit side by side every morning. And then you became one of my dearest friends. So it's all good.
Yeah.
Yes, Jen, I have googly eyes for you anytime. So, but that
Well,
that was like 2000.
I know. Well, and I first knew of you because I was a big listener of your first radio station. It was called The Morning X, and you were on that show. And so I knew of you from there. And then when I came to work at the same station as you, they said, Melissa's going out for a kidney transplant. Would you jump in and fill in for her while she's out? And I knew that was going to be my 6-week audition, right? To see if I could hang. And then, but I just always remember saying to them, like, I don't want to do this at the expense of Melissa. Like, I want, clearly this is her job, right? So you came back and they kept me as a 5th member of the show. So that was where it all started. And I mean, fast forward to when you're the reason that I'm married to my husband. We have to tell that story at some point. And fast forward to now. So we've been friends, nearly 20 years.
Well, and I think that, with this podcast series, we're targeting women who are older. And there's a reason for that, because I think that when we talk about the fact that we've been friends for 20 years, it's with a really that much time has gone by. Yeah. Am I able to? And I find that a lot of my long-term friends, some of my friends that I was with in that first radio show, like we're talking 25 years, and the fact that my high school buddies, like we've been friends for 40 to 50 years. So I still can't believe internally that I'm old enough to have friendships that long, but that is the case. And I think that it's one of those things where instead of looking at it like, oh God, I'm that old, it's more like I am proud of the fact that I have thrived enough to where I have maintained friendships for decades. And that's a testament not only to the people who I chose as friends, but also to myself. And I think there should be pride in that instead of this sense of, oh God,
Right. Well, and that speaks to why we want to do this podcast series. Melissa and I have always remained friends. And anytime we've shared pictures of ourselves on social media or shared pictures doing things, the comments come in, you two should do a podcast. And we have talked about it for many years. And during the pandemic, just gave us some time to take a step back. And just like so many of you are doing, like breathe and go, what do I really want to be doing? And then doing it, actually having the time and taking the steps to do it. So that's part of why we're here. And I think the other reason why we're doing this is because we do want to change that conversation around age. It's not a fair conversation. As we all, as human beings, grow older, we have more value. But for some reason, the messages that we are getting from our culture or society is that at some point women expire. Men become wealthier and more distinguished as they get older, and women somehow diminish. We expire, our lights turn out, we're supposed to just disappear and knit somewhere. Like, no. And that discrepancy is really what is fueling us to spark some of these conversations we're so excited to have on the Friendzy.
Well, and I can say this, and forgive me for saying this, because the FCC doesn't sanction podcasts, but it's shit or get off the pot, basically. Because my feeling is that we have heard our mothers, our grandmothers complain about that, right? Generations of women have complained about the fact that why am I not viable anymore after a certain age? And what that certain age is menopause. So usually what happens is, as long as we're sexy, as long as we're somebody that men want to have sex with, and we're able of childbearing years, you hear all these wonderful adjectives are only for women. Well, you don't want to say it for men.
Right.
But my frustration with that is that I'm not a complainer. I naturally don't like to complain. If I do complain, then I take action with it. And so I feel that women as a whole like to complain about these things, which are valid things to be concerned about, but not to do anything about it. And my feeling is that the reason we're in the position we're in is because we've enabled it to happen, that we tell ourselves these things, these myths, I think they originated from men trying to say these myths, because for men, they just didn't find women attractive as they got older, and I'm generalizing. But women have started that conversation in their own heads. Oh God, I'm at this age. Well, then you get nervous about in your own marriages. You're nervous that your husband's going to leave you if you're a younger woman. Like, where do we get these ideas? Well, that's the constant story we're told, not only in the novels we read and the movies we see. I mean, our entertainment is about the fact that we are expiring. So I agree with Jen. We're trying to change that. We're doing something about it. Like, here we are. I'm 50 years old and proud to be 50. And I don't want to spend the next however long I've got, just in this dire state of mourning when I potentially live through, 20, 30 more years. I want those to be the best 20, 30 years I've ever had, regardless of what my body's doing, because my mind and my heart and my experience have given me confidence that I never had at 25 years old.
And I think because when we hear these messages from our culture, our families, our friends over and over again, we start to buy into them. We start to own that perspective as our own, even if we disagree with it in our heart of hearts. Somewhere deep down in your soul, when somebody lies about their age, somewhere in there goes, that's not right. Like, I've never heard a guy feel like he has to say, like, oh, I'm 29 and holding, right? Like,
29 time. Yeah, right.
There's something in you that goes, no, I don't agree with that, but everybody's saying it, so maybe I'm supposed to agree with this. Like, maybe I'm supposed to be ashamed of my real age, which, by the way, I'm 43, almost 44. Maybe I'm supposed to not ever talk about it. I was sharing with a friend the other day that we're starting the Friendzy, we're changing the conversation around age. And she goes, oh, no, that's not a topic I ever talk about. And I said, and that's exactly why we're doing this show, because we shouldn't be ashamed of our years. We should be able to claim them. And that builds us up to a more confident, more professional, smarter, more enthusiastic human being. Yeah. And instead of buying into this narrative that we expire, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. And I think in your heart of hearts, it doesn't make any sense, but for some reason you go along to get along and buy into this. So Melissa and I are on this mission to, as friends, talk about it and change the conversation. And we also know that we're on the journey with everyone, right? Like, we're on the journey with you, that if you feel a frustration with this, you feel this tug and this pull to do something differently, just know that, like, we don't have it all figured out yet. We just want to open up these conversations so we can all learn and grow and be better together.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm 50. I want people to say, oh, well, congratulations, or that's great, instead of like, well, you don't look 50. Because people think that's a compliment. Yes. And I appreciate you saying that, because I know you're trying to give me a compliment if you say that. I mean, you may not say that, but that's still buying into that. You're still enabling that myth. You're still trying to make me feel better for being 50. The motivation truly is, oh, I'm sorry you're 50, but just know that your looks, you still look like you could do what? Like, what does that mean that I don't look 50? So I just really think that people have to reevaluate as women what we have done to ourselves and how we can not only better ourselves, but better the future. Because as you spoke, think about how you complain about yourself in the house. And guess what you've just done? You have perpetuated that to the next generation if you have children in that house. And I don't care if you have a daughter or a son. I don't complain about my body or my skin or my age to my son. He knows exactly how old I am. And because if you have a son in the house, then you're going to make him feel like women have an expiration date if you complain about yourself. So you're trying to get people to make you feel better in your house, but you're responsible for stopping it here. We stop it right now. And in doing so, that means you stop complaining and lying about your age.
Absolutely. All right. I'm so excited to continue this conversation coming up, because we are going to dive a little bit more into this. We're going to answer questions about, like, why do we lie about our age? Why is this such a big problem? And how do we plan to fix it? And then wait until you hear, I have the funniest story to tell you about when I first felt so old. It took my breath away. So I can't wait to tell you that story. And Melissa is going to tell you the shocking words that she heard on the radio that made her swerve off the road. So we're very excited about that. That's coming up in just a couple of minutes. Plus, we have a surprise at the end of the show for our very first subscribers who leave a 5-star review. We're really excited about this. For everybody who listens to the show, subscribes, and leaves us a review, we've got a great prize, an all-new Echo Dot 4th generation smart speaker with Alexa. So we'll get you in running for that. You don't have to sign up for anything. All you've got to do is subscribe and leave us a 5-star review.
Yeah, and it's all part of the Friendzy, because with that Echo Dot, not only is it going to save you time, because we also know that as women, you are busy and you have to be time efficient. And I've got one of these things, and it just makes your life easier. Plus, it's easier to listen to the Friendzy on it too.
That's right. We're totally all about that.
All right. So you've got to try this new game, You Don't Know My Life, with your friends. You Don't Know My Life is a game about the quirky little experiences that make us all human. Sure, the details may be different, but we've all had triumphs and heartbreaks, pop culture moments that totally changed our lives, mortifying things that happened to us when we were like 13 and sometimes in front of the whole school. And we all have had those stories, all kinds of stories. So skip past the small talk, truly connect with the people around you, and celebrate your own crazy life, all while laughing your face off. Grab a pencil, join the party. You've already got the answers. You Don't Know My Life, on sale now at Amazon for $31.99. Perfect for your next Zoom party or family night in. Jen and I are going to play around later in today's episode.
I am so excited to try. This game is created by a friend of Melissa's, Dennis Hensley, the creator, and such a creative. I cannot wait to see what questions are in this game. That's going to be so much fun. Okay, so typically in the Friendzy, we're going to invite guests on the show to enlighten us, to challenge us, to really dive into these conversations around age. But we thought that our first episode should be about us talking about it, so that you can get to know Melissa and I a little bit better, and that you can understand our perspective on why we wanted to do this in the first place. So coming up on future episodes, we're going to have some really great guests to feature. But for the first one, we thought it would just be us.
Just be us, Jen and I, sisters from another mister. Jen and I truly are dear friends, and we've been dear friends this whole time. So I know that a lot of listeners who have heard us before, probably ask that question: "Are you still friends? You still talk?" And it's like, yeah, pretty much all the time.
Because Melissa was in the hospital when my children were born. Okay. Yeah. And I was there when she brought her son home. So this is what kind of friends we are.
Yes, and they have socialized together and been at birthday parties together. And I love how Jen's oldest daughter, then my son, then her youngest daughter. So my son fits right in between your children. But I mean, so that's kind of, it organically happened. So like Jen said, it started with us wanting to work together on something after we were not part of a show anymore together. And then it's from you asking for it. And like you said, during the pandemic, in our conversations, it organically came up because we talked about being parents, but we also talked about being ambitious women, ambitious women who were getting older. And I think that we recognize that for a lot of women who aren't ambitious, who don't have, Jen and I certainly don't have 100% full self-confidence, but I think we've seen we have more than other women we've known. And women tend to give up on themselves. And, whether it's the end of their job, the end of, being empty nesters, I just felt like the show started because we realized that we still had a lot of gas in the tank, and we're ambitious. We're going to keep doing. We're going to keep going until we drop. Like I plan on working. I plan on having projects unfulfilled when I die. I want my son to find, mom was going to do this and mom was working on that, and I don't know what to do with this. Should I throw it away? Like he's going to have questions on what do I do with this, because I didn't stop, and I want to show him that I don't stop. And I don't think it's fair that as a woman, I'm expected to stop, that I'm expected to sit around and feel sorry for myself, where, like you said, men tend to become more valuable the older they get. And I don't understand where that came. I can tell you it came from men, but I don't understand why that's still the perception, the self-perception here in 2021.
Yeah, I think that some of my motivation to do this show came from reading a book. It's called Comeback Careers. And I read a statistic in that book that said the most fired group of human beings in our culture in America are women that are 55. And I
Mm.
thought, why? I didn't get it. I was like, why is that? Because women who are 55 have all this really great experience, right? By the time we're 55, we've learned a lot of things, we've made some mistakes, we've done all these different things, but that is the group that gets let go in corporate America the most. And I thought there is something wrong with that. And we have got to step up and start changing the conversation around this because it's just not right. Not only is it ageist, it's also very sexist, and the same thing does not happen to men at age 55. So I thought, from that statistic that sparked something in me, and I just thought, like, why do we buy into this narrative of getting older means bad, and why do we buy into this narrative that it only is bad for women? And at the root of that, I think you have to talk about value and where we value women in our culture and where we value ourselves in our culture. And I feel like that's the root of it. Would you agree? Like, if our value is only in our appearance, then if we've bought into that, right? And then we've bought into this patriarchal society that's been handed down to us, right? That we go, oh, yeah, they must be right. My only value is in how I look. And so when I look older or I get wrinkles or my hair turns gray, then all of a sudden I don't have any value anymore. And
I tell you where I think it stems from. So two things come to mind. First of all, I got laid off during the pandemic, and I'm 50, so I fit that mold of what you just said. That they let me go, from my last position in corporate America. So after I left, professional radio, I was doing, some radio in the corporate world, and yeah, I got laid off. So. But again, I didn't sit around and feel sorry for myself. I'm like, okay, what's next? Now it's time to do something else.
yeah,
That's the attitude you need to have. And secondly, my theory, and Jen's probably heard this, and I forgive me for having to hear it again, but my theory on why we have that value system is from how we were raised. And that is, we were taught at a young age, don't call boys. We were taught you have to wait on him to ask you out. We are taught you have to wait on him to propose to you. We are taught you have to wait on him to ask you to prom. We were told you have to sit and wait for a man to make that decision on whether or not you're valuable enough to be by his side during certain things.
Dang, hold on a second. I'm going to have to digest that because that's so huge. And you're
So
so
I haven't told you before. So I haven't told you before. That's my theory.
Like unraveling so much so that we can get to the heart of why we buy into this narrative. It's like so much of what you were just talking about is so wrapped up in who we are, we don't even question it.
Right.
Why do we need a guy to give us a green light to do anything? And I pray and hope for the next generation, for my two girls, that they don't feel that way, that I'm not repeating that narrative in their life, that we are finding a way to give girls and women the green light to do whatever it is that they desire without the permission of a guy. And I think you're right. That starts in personal relationships, like what you were saying about prom or on a date or whatever, but it translates into the corporate world.
Yeah.
If we, in the fiber of our being, think we need the green light from a man to move forward in business or ambition or whatever it is you want to do, you're always waiting for somebody else to say go.
Yes.
Dang.
And that's why it's hard. That's why women aren't good in negotiations, because that forces you to have to stand up for yourself. And for a lot of women, they're not trained to do it. So for me, I think a lot of women should not have this feeling of guilt. I mean, because what perpetuates it, what makes it spin out of control is you're trained not to have an opinion. And then when you get to be an adult, you're expected to have one. And then you realize, I don't know how to do this. So then that lack of self-confidence just grows. Okay, I don't know how to do it. But you never think nobody taught me. Because, I mean, even my mother, Millie Pete, who was a very progressive woman for her age, still did not believe in girls calling boys on the phone. So I was trained that, I mean, I ended up not dating men anyway, but, you know, and I think that me being a lesbian has helped me so much in my attitude about myself, because in gay relationships, there's not those preset conditions. Like,
right. There's rules.
There's no rules in the gay community like there are in the straight community that are just embedded in your mind that nobody talks about. You have to discuss those things. So when you're in a lesbian relationship, you have to discuss those things. Like, okay, well, what does this mean? Who, you know, like who pays for dinner if we do this, you know, so whatever. But I think that as an adult, you don't realize that you are expected to do things that you're not capable of doing because you never practiced it. And then when you're in those situations like negotiations, like with a job, or even in your own marriages, okay, let's say you are a professional woman, let's say you are an ambitious woman, and let's say you're married, and let's say that your job will take you to another place. I guarantee most women are self-conscious about asking their husbands to pick up and move after them, as opposed to the man's job transferred him to somewhere, and she would be like, okay, well, yeah, we'll figure this out. You know, men are usually generalizing, but men are usually, you know, hesitant to say, oh yeah, I'll drop everything for my wife. I'm dropping everything for my wife's job, because they're not trained, because they're also of the same mindset. They were trained, you got to make the calls. And here's the other thing on that. The reason I think men are better in business generally in a certain generation is because of the opposite of what we were trained. So they were trained, okay, you got to call a girl. You got to call the girl you want. Okay, she may reject you. So men are trained on rejection from a very young age. They're trained on, okay, if I get no here, then I'll try again, or I'll go somewhere else. They learn about averages. They learn, okay, if I try enough, eventually I'm going to get it. If there's a girl of their dreams, then they're like, okay, I'm gonna kind of, you know, fudge my story to try to impress her. So that's why men go after jobs they're not qualified for, because it's like that date. Okay, I'm going to charm this person enough to hire me, but I'm already trained since 12 years old to be able to go into something I don't know anything about and just try anyway. Girls don't have that education. And so that's why girls only go for jobs they're 100% qualified for, because they want to dress up and be perfect for that job, because the job is going to say, I want you to be a part of me. Right. So just like you got to be a pretty girl, so the boy asks you out, you got to be the perfect candidate so that you get the job. So we're talking two different languages between men and women when it comes to life in general and confidence. And I think that's where it starts.
I love that. And I think it gives me a lot to think about. As far as value goes, and our value being rooted in our appearance, I think a lot of that, I can only speak for myself, is based on the reaction and the reward. You know, so we're sort of reward-based creatures, right? Human beings, like you seek praise, you know, you seek those good feelings, you know, and you seek good relationships. You want to feel like you're doing the right things or whatever. And so I feel like my whole life, and for a lot of women, your whole life, you are given praise for the way you look.
Yes.
You're given praise for buying.
Even as babies, there's studies about if you dress a baby, two babies don't look any different, male or female. But if you dress a baby in pink and dress a baby in blue, studies have shown people talk to them in different tones and they say different things.
So it's like, how do we unweave some of that training that has been since we came out of the womb, that what we look like is how we're valued? And as we get older, as we age, and we're going to claim our real age and rejoice in it, we're going to make it a celebration. That's why the Friendzy is going to be a party about age. We've got to figure out, how do we reverse some of that training that our only value is in the way that we look. Right. And that it's so important above all else to look a certain way, you know. And I think that it's a big conversation across our country, across our cultures, to say this narrative is crap.
Well, and think about it. Like, you know, men get frustrated with women because they take so long to get ready. Well, because that's our value system. Right. And men, you know, women just, you know, roll their eyes at men because they want to be silly and do silly things. Well, being clever is usually what we reward men for. So we allow men to look however they want to look for the most part, but if they're clever, if they're smart, if they can figure out something, they can put something together, so that's the other thing. As a lesbian, I put together my own furniture. I do things around my own house. And that's because when I realized I was
Beyonce, you're like, I drive my own car. I pay my own bills.
But the thing is, I figure it out. So like, it's not that just because I'm a lesbian, I came into the world knowing how to use a box of tools. But the thing is, when I was a teenager, realizing I was a lesbian and knowing that I wasn't going to get married, because again, gay marriage has only been in recent history. So I didn't plan for the first 20 years of my adult life. I never once considered getting married because I wanted to do it legally. So because of that, I knew, well, I'm not necessarily going to be coupled up with somebody. And if I need to get this done, then I'm going to have to figure it out for myself. So I guess it's like proof positive that I'm a woman. I did the research. I attempted it. I failed. I attempted it again because I had no other choice. I had no backup plan. So many women use their men as backup plans. Do it yourself.
I'm guilty of that for sure.
And you're capable. So that's the thing is I'm proof that you were capable of doing it. And that it's also most men, there's a lot of men that can't do these things. So it's interesting, again, like with my son, you talk about your daughters. With my son, like there have been conversations that I've been privy to where people are concerned, relatives concerned that there's no man in his life. There's no man in his life. There's no father in his life because he's got two mothers. And in my mind, I'm thinking, and these are relatives. I'm shocked that they have this attitude. And I know it's not personal to Melissa. It's personal to themselves and what they've been taught. So again, I mean, this is a huge conversation that we're going to spend this series talking about, but it permeates every aspect of our lives. And that's why it's so important to do this podcast. Somebody's got to talk about it. Nobody's talking about it. We need to talk about it. And like I said, this is a show for 40 plus women to not lie about your age and to be proud of you and to talk about those things. Like I'm entering premenopause. That's a full conversation right there. I mean, we're going to talk about menopause. We're going to talk, like you said, shaving. We're going to talk about things where you can feel safe here. And it's a safe space. There's no judgment. And hopefully you can learn to end your life on a higher note than you started it. Don't pine for your 18-year-old body. Be excited that you are as wise and as wonderful as you are, because I would never want to, especially after the pandemic, honey, I don't want to ever go back, because all that means is I have to go through the pandemic again, right? No.
No rewinding. Yeah. Well, and I think that we're on this journey with our audience. Like we don't have it all figured out yet. There's going to be things that we can reveal about ourselves and our own insecurities around age to say, you're not alone. And we can change this in our brain together. Because once you know better, then you do better, right? Like once you know about things and you start thinking about like, gosh, maybe I am kind of ageist, or would I have a bias about hiring someone in my company that's an older woman? Would I have a bias about posting to social media on an older woman's post how beautiful she is? Would I have a bias that changes the way I behave and the way I perpetuate this narrative that somehow we expire, which is just crap. We just don't, right? We're going to celebrate.
Well, and it made me, I'm sorry, Jen, it made me think, I'm going to write this down. I'll talk about this later, but it reminded me of a younger man I worked with who said to me once when I was exerting my opinion on something, said, "You remind me of my mother," because he interpreted my opinion to be fussing at him as if I was a mother. So it's like you go from whore to mother. You go from something to have sex with to something that tries to control you.
What was your response to him in that moment?
Gosh, I don't remember. I was so shocked. I remember thinking, I can't wait to talk about this on the air.
Right.
In any capacity I could do it.
I was thinking, you always think of those like retorts in the best way, like a year after the situation happened. But like,
I promise you I didn't back down, but I don't remember exactly what I said. I don't know if it was poetic or not, but
I'd love to meet your mother. I bet she's really smart and opinionated.
Yeah, I mean, but but to your point, I think that's, I'm just whittling it in on why we do this. It's like the role as sex partner turns into the role as mother, as if mother's a bad thing. So that's the other thing, is why is mother this, like nitpicking always did it. Well, you know what? The mother's usually the one that's the disciplinarian in the house. The mother's usually the one making those decisions. The mother usually has to do that. And so if you don't even respect a mother's boundaries and opinions and direction, I mean, we have a problem from all levels
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to this.
Well, I wanted to tell you this little anecdote. Last week, I went for a television audition for a show, and I was talking to the owner of the company and also the director that I was auditioning in front of. And because of the content of what the show is going to be about, I got this line. It's the guy, working with two men. One of the men said, "I don't want to offend you with this, but I think you're the perfect age for this job." And I thought, why would my age offend me? Why would I be offended by that? Like, he could have just said, "I think you're the perfect age for this job." And I would have been like, great. And I said right back to him, knowing that you and I are starting the Friendzy and we're changing the conversation around age. I couldn't believe that this happened right in front of me. Yeah. And I said to him, I really enjoy my age. I'm 100% comfortable with how old I am. So I'm glad you think it's a great fit. But he started the sentence with, "I hope this doesn't offend you, but."
What, why? I mean, was it a younger guy?
Why?
Because I assume it's a younger guy than what you are. But I also think that
it was the older one. It was the guy older than me who said
the one who's older than you. Well, because he's been trained. So the other thing is, I think that we also have told men, what is it that, we jokingly tell men, never ask a woman her age. Yes, and never ask a woman her real age.
Why is it rude? Why is it a rude question? Why aren't we questioning the rude question?
Right. So that's what we're starting the Friendzy, because that's what this is about. We are going to talk real talk about this stage of life, whatever you want to call it, because to me, it really truly is my best age. Like I'm not lying when I say that 50 is better than any age I've lived, because of everything that I've gained. Like it's hard to explain, but I really feel that way. Now, I've also fought death from a health condition. Mm-hmm. And I think that is what really fine-tuned it for me. But I don't want people to have fear or have some bad incident in your life to happen for you to truly feel proud to be your age. And I don't care what that age is. And I came from a mother, Millie Pete, who passed away last year now. She lived to be 91 and never complained about her age.
I love it.
And I've been very fortunate to have that experience, because I think she's unique. I think a lot of women complain about their age in front of their children, and you don't realize you are teaching your child to do the same exact thing.
That permeates into their psyche. Those little tiny messages over time really do permeate that filter, and then it becomes your truth. It becomes your narrative. So I'm really excited about our future conversations, and I cannot wait to hear about the shocking words you heard on the radio that made you swerve off the road. We're going to get to that story here in just a second. I wanted to share the funniest story about when I felt so old. Okay, yes. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
So I had been working out really hard at this gym and was really into it. So I had been going to work. And at the time I was on a morning show with a co-host and two producers who were two younger women than me. One probably 10 years. I think one is 10 years younger than me and the other about 15 years younger than me. Okay. And then my co-host that was about my same age. So I had been telling them all about this workout and how the owner of the gym was a listener to our morning show. And it was real close to the radio station. So one day we were going to lunch near the gym. And I said, "Oh, I want you guys to come in and meet the manager. He's a big fan of the show and he would love to meet you all." Right. So we walk in to the gym. It's kind of an off time. There's no classes going on at the time. And I expected to see him there. But first we saw this other woman there. And she said, "Hey," like she had recognized me. But in hindsight, I don't think she really recognized me. I think she was playing the like, I have to be nice to all my gym members.
Gotcha.
She was doing the customer service thing. And so I said, hey, I wanted to find out if manager guy is here because I brought in the whole family so that he could meet him. And I said family, because we had kind of talked about on.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So she goes, okay, let me go see. He's in the back. Let me go tell him you're here. So she runs to the back and she tells him that we're here. And she comes back out and she says, oh, he's finishing up something. He'll be out in just a second. I'm sure he'll want to meet you. Then she turns to my two younger female producers and says, I just want you to know your mom is killing it.
What did they do? What did they do?
They started cracking up laughing. My co-host at the time, I am sure, hit the deck laughing so hard. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not their mother. I'm their coworker. So there you go. That's when I knew I was in new territory right there. I was like, I'm only 10 years older. I don't think I could have asked them.
But see, like now that's awkward for everybody because now she feels bad for saying it. And you shouldn't feel bad for what because it goes back into, okay, that's okay. That's all right. I'd be happy to be their mom. Okay, that's cool.
Right.
I totally expect, I don't remember Millie Pete ever because my mom literally did not turn full gray. She started having problems probably a year before she passed. And I don't remember her turning full gray till then.
Oh, wow.
So she had black hair and the gray just sparsely invaded her hair beginning in her 80s.
But see, I have friends in their 30s that are gray.
Right. Well, the reason I bring that up is because I think that what I'm about to say, I don't remember it happening to mom because I think her hair was always dark.
Okay.
But I know my son is 6 years old, right? So I'm 50 years old with a 6-year-old son, and I guarantee it's not going to be the mama comment. It's going to be the grandmama comment. So I know that I'm going to get, your grandson is so cute. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right. So I'm dying to hear the story of the shocking words that you heard on the radio that made you swerve off the road.
I'm riding in the car, Jen. I'm cranking up. I'm flipping channels. Okay. So I don't even know if I was on a local station or if I was on a national station, but I stopped because it was playing 80s music. Okay. So I went to high school in the 80s. I don't know who I was listening to. It could have, I don't know. It could have been Madonna. It could have been, you think of course, Prince and Michael Jackson and stuff. It could have been Adam and
Lauper.
It could have been Cyndi Lauper. I don't know what it was, but I was very nostalgic and I was having fun and I was listening to this. And then as the DJ came on to transition it, it was Home of the New Classics. And I was like, I am not old enough to have my music be the classic music station. What? But yes, I am, which is fine, and it's fine. But I almost swerved off the road because it was like I literally my jaw dropped because it's again that I can't be old enough to be in the classic. I am old enough to be in the classic music, and now I see these movies that are like there was some movie. I'm part of a movie club during the pandemic, the Zoom movie club, where friends and I get together once a week and we watch the movie during the week and talk about it, after the week's over. And some of these movies, like now the kids to be retro and to be cool, they're wearing 80s stuff.
Right.
And it's like, and my mother told me this because my mother grew up in the era of the 50s poodle skirts. She was in her 20s then, but she fondly remembers the poodle skirts and the saddle shoes and everything. And when I had 50s day in high school, she made the comment, well, it's so interesting. If you just hold on to your clothes, give it 20 or 30 years, they come back in style. Yeah. And I remember her saying that and thinking, oh, you did wear this. Same damn thing. 30 years later, my clothes that I wore in high school is what kids are wearing on 80s day or in these movies.
So you have a son. So I don't know if you know about American Girls. These are
I do,
dolls.
but you
Okay.
explain it. Yes, we don't have one.
American Girl dolls. They're very popular. They're very expensive. And each year they come out with like a new doll that's like the vintage. And so they've had them from the 1800s. They've had them from the early 1900s, whatever. This year's American Girl doll is vintage from the 80s.
Oh
Yes.
no!
Yeah. And she's wearing fluorescent clothes. She's got the
A
side pony.
vintage doll. I'm a vintage doll.
She's the vintage doll, Melissa. My best friend Ashley texted me a picture of it. And, yeah. And she's my best friend. She's texting me the picture. She goes, "Can you believe this?" In all caps. I know.
So it's like
Here's
Jen
where we
said.
are.
We're on the same path as you. So as I absorb that information, even though I'm an empowered woman at 50,
Yeah.
vintage is now the adjective being used.
It's a good thing vintage is cool. You know, when it comes to vinyl records, that's like the best thing you can be.
When you go into a vintage store, Jen, it's dusty. It's dusty, and young kids don't want to go in there, but they roll their eyes. It's fine.
So like it smells like mothballs. What's
yes.
going on?
Yeah. So
dust it off, girlfriend, because the Friendzy is here. We're changing the conversation. All right. So we want to say thank you so much to our very first sponsor ever. And it's this awesome game. Melissa, what's the name of the game again?
It's called You Don't Know My Life. And one of the co-founders is a friend of mine, Dennis Hensley, who I also was a co-host with on a nationally syndicated show in the 2000s called Radio with a Twist. And he and another friend have created this game. Dennis was in media for a long time. I hope I'm going to say this correctly. Dennis will correct me if I don't. But Dennis was in media for a long time, and his specialty was celebrity interviews. So he's an author as well as a broadcaster. And he had all these questions he would ask celebrities to try to get better stories out of them. And a lot of those questions he asked celebrities are a part of this game, You Don't Know My Life. So now this is a board game. And, you know, like we said, you can find this on Amazon. You can find it also on youdon'tknowmylife.com. But I take the cards, the questions out of the deck, take them to dinners with friends when I could go to dinner and when I go to dinner again, because I just think it's revealing. It's not just a conversation starter. It's really revealing. So I picked a card from the deck.
Okay.
And each are going to answer this.
Okay.
So the question is, what is something you tried once and thought never again?
Oh gosh, that's so good. The first thing that came to mind was a certain type of sushi because I had this thing for a while. When I was probably in my 30s, I discovered sushi and then I loved it. So I had my own personal rule that every time I went out to dinner to a sushi restaurant, I would order one piece of is it called nigiri when it's one slice of something?
Yes, right. Yes.
Right. So one slice of and so it helped me discover new sushi that I like because I was only buying one little piece of it. And if I didn't like it, I'd pitch it or, you know, just have one bite and be like, okay, that's not a sushi I want to try. But I made that rule. So every time I went out to dinner, I had to try something new. And one of the pieces of sushi I put in my mouth had the worst texture ever. It was spongy and spiky. And I don't even know the name of the fish right now off the top of my head. I'd have to go Google it and look for it. But it's, have you ever seen in a fish tank, like those little domes that they put in there for the fish to swim in and out of? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It looked like on a piece of rice, one of those. And it was a spongy, spiky fish. And I felt like I was chewing the skin of an animal when I ate it. And that's one thing I tried. And I said, nope, never again. I'm good. Even though that sushi rule helped me learn a lot of sushi that I did love. So it really did open my, you know, my palate to a lot of new sushi flavors, but not that one. I got to look up what kind of fish that was. It was awful.
Yeah, I'm making a note for another show intro on something you can learn for something I ate that I didn't know what it said on the menu. I didn't understand it. And then we'll tell that story later. All right. But this was something you tried once and thought never again. First thing that came to my mind was I'll go back to the vintage era of the 80s.
Do tell.
So our senior year, I had the privilege of growing up in a small town with the same friends from kindergarten all the way up.
That's cool.
And so a couple of us who had known each other since childhood decided that, I don't know if we had just graduated, about to graduate, but we decided to go skinny dipping. Okay. And so we broke into a community pool that we knew very well, but we climbed the fence, got into the pool, and it was me and a female friend and two guys. And we're like, we've known each other since childhood. None of us were dating. None of us were attracted to the other. We're just going to do, and that's why we wanted to do it. We're just, screw it. We're going to do it. So and this had to, no, actually it was probably right before we went to college. We'd already graduated. And there's a reason I'm telling you this. It was toward the end of the summer. And the reason I'm telling you this is because when you strip off your clothes, if you ever skinny dipped at night, your tan lines reverse. So what happens is the parts of you that aren't tan are like spotlights. So my boobs were fluorescent in the night, and the guys' privates were fluorescent in the night. And so we were swimming and stuff and diving off the boards. And we're like, screw it. We made a pact. We're not we're not going to tell anybody. But I said never again because it's deceiving. It's not sexy. The tan part of you is dark in the night, and all you see is two nipples, swooshing back and forth as you're running, on the side of the pool. Into the pool, and then you got this dangling thing running as he's running out. So it's skinny dipping. That's it. I tried it once, and I that was when I was 18. I'm not doing that again. Well, and I'm proud to say if I use those parts today, they'd be hanging a little lower, and there'd be a lot more not tan, but still.
So y'all have got to try this new game, You Don't Know My Life, with your friends. It's so great. See how much fun we just had? I never knew that story about you.
Well, see, that's the thing is that what I love about this game, and I tell Dennis over and over again, is the fact that you learn things about your friends. Jen and I've known each other 20 years. And I would never think to tell that story, right? In a conversation. But this game will bring out all those things. And it's a really bonding opportunity.
And I will say, I am sick of talking about coronavirus and quarantine and politics and everything else going on in the world. Those conversations to me are spent. I'm done with them. I'm so tired of them. So it would be a welcome change in the conversation, just with your friends and your family. Just bring it to the dinner table. I love it. Yeah. You can grab You Don't Know My Life. It's on sale now at their own website, youdon'tknowmylife.com, or Amazon for just $31.99. Perfect for your next Zoom gathering or family gathering or whatever it may be. So thank you so much to Dennis for sponsoring the Friendzy.
Yay!
And friends, we hope that you've enjoyed this show. We're so excited to finally get started with it. We have some great conversations in store. So if this impacted you in any way, shape, or form, or you even just kind of sort of like me and Melissa, could you leave us a review? Leave us a rating and a review. It'll mean a lot to us for the podcast listing. And for anybody who subscribes and leaves us a 5-star review, we have a fantastic prize for you at the end of our series. We're going to give away an all-new Echo Dot 4th generation smart speaker with Alexa, and that'll make your life easier. You can listen to the show more often, and it's just fun, cool tech to have in your house. So you don't have to sign up for anything. All you've got to do is subscribe to the podcast and leave us a 5-star review, and you are automatically in the running for that really cool prize.
That's right. Thank you, Dennis. And also, look, please not only leave a review, tell your friends. If you are like, thank God somebody's talking about this, share it with all the women you know that are 40 and older, and let them be part of the Friendzy. You can always find us online too if you're on social media. It's the Friendzy, and you can see it. Well, no, they can't see. It's the Friendzy, spelled Friendzy. So Friendzy. You can find the Friendzy on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. we'll talk about TikTok too. Old ladies on TikTok.
I can't wait to talk about TikTok.
Love it. And you know what? There's nothing that is a solo effort. It's all a team effort. And we have not only our sponsor to thank, but we also want to thank some people that helped launch this series. Musical Score has been brought to you by Atlanta musician Tammy Hurt. Again, thanks to Dennis Hensley and You Don't Know My Life game for sponsoring our first episode. Thank you to Helen Vickers, who is our graphic designer, and Caden Jacobs, who has done our web design. We could not have done this without you.
Plus, we're going to reveal to you why we named this show The Friendzy.
It was like giving birth. There was a labor involved.
A journey, to say the least.
9 months, 9 long months. That's what it felt like. Trust your gut.
Use your voice.
Stop lying about your age.
Bye.